In today's episode, I'm going to show you how I put together these graves and gravestones using cheap hobby materials that I found at my local craft store. Alright, so we're going to start things off with a craft material that I haven't used in a little while, and that's these playing cards. They come in packs of 2 at the Dollar Tree for $1.25, and they're a great little crafting material to have on hand. I combined that with a piece of craft foam that I got at Michael's. These are really nice for a lot of filler and really worthwhile to have on hand for a few projects. So I trimmed the foam to be just a hair bit smaller than the size of the playing card, and then hot glued it down onto the face. This will create a nice foundation for the graves. Then, using a little bit of hot glue, I reinforced the edges and then smoothed them down to create a nice little bevel. So I wanted a few open graves, so after cutting a template out that's roughly the size of the coffins that I made in a previous episode, I cut 2 pieces of foam to have the same opening, and then hot glued them together in a sandwich. This will create a little bit of depth to kind of be an open grave to fit the coffin lids inside, and give the impression of a partially buried coffin. And then I just hot glued it down to the card. Now, I did this next step backwards. You should really cut the bevel on the second layer of foam before hot gluing the edges. I hot glued before I cut the bevel. Made a little bit of extra work, but it was still doable with a pair of sharp scissors. Once that's done, I took some Mod Podge and painted over the entire surface of the card. I would recommend not painting the edges with the Mod Podge just yet. Paint over the entire thing, or the entire surface, cover the whole thing with sand, let it dry, and then go back and touch up the edges with sand. It'll be a lot easier to handle and save you a little bit of headache and sticky fingers. Alright, after a few minutes of drying, tap off the excess, and it's good to go. And I'm going to do a quick check to make sure it still fits the coffin lid. And then I'm going to use some Artist Loft Raw Umber to give a nice base coat. Now this is going to be the darkest color I use. I wanted it on the inside of the open graves to kind of give the impression of a dark, deep hole in the ground. And this is also going to be the foundation color for a series of dry brushes to kind of give a nice dirt appearance to the surface layer. Once that's dry, I use some burnt umber to do a nice heavy overbrush of the surface. And then followed it up with a dry brush of raw sienna. And then to pick out the surface highlights, I do a very light dry brush of warm gray to help kind of raise the details of the stones. Now to create the kind of loose ground, recently dug grave appearance, I do a kind of oval-shaped blob of glue. In this case I'm using wood glue. I find that it has a nice strong hold once it dries. And then I use a little bit of gravel. I got this at the Dollar Tree. And just cover the entirety of the glue, let it sit for a few minutes and dry, and once it's done we'll have a piece similar to this one. So while that's drying, we're going to create some filling for the empty graves on a couple of the pieces by gluing in a couple of these coffins. Now if you have like a model of a mummified body or something like that, you can definitely put those in there. I'm going to use the coffin lids because that's what I have on hand, and then to kind of create the effect that they're in the process of being buried, I'm going to add a few blobs of glue. And in this one empty grave here, I'm going to put a little bit of glue in the corners to kind of create a little bit of an effect like the hole is starting to collapse in on itself. Alright, so now that the gravel has dried, we're going to paint some more wood glue over the top of all the gravel. This is going to kind of hold all of our sand in place to kind of create that raised, recently dug earth appearance. Now, I did try this on a different piece without the gravel, and while it did work, the glue dried eventually fully, and it just kind of sank into the ground. So this creates that raised effect, and it doesn't go away. So I painted the raised sections of the sand with some Agrax Earthshade, and then followed it up with a light to medium dry brush of raw sienna. This creates a kind of nice tilled earth appearance. Alright, while all those are drying, let's create some gravestones. I've got a craft stick, commonly referred to as a tongue depressor, and a coffee stick. So I'm going to cut the craft stick to a few lengths of 3/4 of an inch. I want the two ends and then two pieces that are cut to 3/4. And then for the coffee stick, I cut a length at 1 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1/4 inch. So now I am taking the larger pieces of the craft stick and sandwiching them together with some glue and just kind of setting them off to the side. So here's one of the pieces once it's been fully dried, and I'm going to cut two of the corners just to kind of give it that, almost classic tombstone appearance. Now I want a border around the bottom edge to be what is usually like a capstone or a base stone or something like that. So what I'm doing is taking a piece of the coffee stick, cutting it to fit the area, and then splitting them down the center to create a base stone appearance that isn't super high on the rest of the piece. So to apply the glue in a situation like this, you can put it on the piece that you're going to be attaching. I like to use a toothpick for this. It's pretty easy to kind of control where the glue goes. And then using a nail file, I'm just sanding down the edges to make sure everything has a flush fit. Then I attach the couple small pieces to the short sides. And there we go. Nice little base stone. Alright, so this is going to get set off to the side to dry along with the rounded one. And while that is drying, let's make a cross. So we're going to start with the 1 inch section, and I'm going to glue one of 3/4 inch pieces to the very, very top. And then this is where I realized that I didn't actually cut the 3/4 piece. So doing that really quickly, we're going to take another one of the 1/4 pieces, glue it to the end. The idea here is to kind of use the wood grain to my advantage and kind of glue everything to where it self-reinforces itself. Alright, so now that everything is dry, we're going to make these gravestones removable so that we can have easier storage. So I poked a little pilot hole, and I'm just drilling out a little bit on the bottom with a pin reamer. And then I'm going to super glue in a piece of a paper clip. I'm using a coated paper clip because that's all I had on hand. The length that sticks out of the bottom is really kind of up to you. I'm going to cut these to match the smallest of the grave sites. So now to paint them up, I'm going to do a double or triple coating of Artist Loft Gray, just to make sure that gray is the only thing we see, and we don't see any of the wood color underneath. Then using a chopped off piece of a sponge, I'm going to dab on some neutral gray. And this is going to give a nice kind of almost weathered marble appearance. Alright. So here we go, but I kind of feel like something's missing, that the tilled earth kind of blends in with the rest of the piece a little bit. So I think we're going to add a little bit of flocking to kind of help separate the colors. Now, I don't want to lose all of the color that I built up on the foundation, so we're going to glue this on in patches. Most likely we could say that, the ground has been stepped on, people have walked over the area, and, whatever you want to use to describe it. Using a simple colander sifter, I'm going to just kind of sprinkle on the flocking, give it a quick tap off. That looks pretty good. Alright, so here we go, everyone, with the finished pieces. These took me about a day to craft. They were not hard to do, just a little time consuming, but I'm really enjoying how they came out, and they're going to be so much fun to use on the table. So thank you everyone for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe for future content, comment in the comments section, and we will see everyone next episode.